If the life that you've built isn't working, what are you so afraid of losing by changing it? Here's the thing about midlife, it's really not the end of anything. Well, except maybe my tolerance for bullshit. It turns out it's actually the start of everything that finally makes sense. I played it safe my whole life, my entire life, even in my career. For over 30 years in corporate America, I was busting my ass and climbing the ladder and following all the rules. I convinced myself that stability was the goal, even as it was costing me my joy, my peace, and eventually my job. I lost my career, I lost my hair, and somehow I found 50 pounds. So, yeah, playing it safe really paid off for me, huh? I bought into the idea that midlife was when you could settle down, keep things stable, and enjoy the fruits of your labor. Except, where are all the fruits, right? Because all I've got is a closet full of clothes that don't fit and a pile of brown bananas. Playing it safe doesn't keep you safe, and midlife is where you realize the walls that you built to feel secure are now barriers to what you really want. When everything falls apart, it forces you to confront the hardest truth. The safe choices that you thought were protecting you might be the very reason that you're stuck. There is one move, just one move, that could change everything for you, and ignoring it could keep you stuck for good. And I'm going to get to that in just a little bit. Now, I didn't just lose a job. I lost the illusion that playing by the rules meant everything would work out for me. For my entire life, I was spinning plates, right? Balancing them, switching them out, doing everything I could to keep them up in the air. When things started falling apart for me, it felt like someone hit the slow motion button. My career was over, my confidence took a nosedive, and suddenly I was driving strangers around for Uber at ungodly hours. It's not glamorous, but you know what? For the first time, I started questioning whether those plates I was trying to keep up and keep spinning were even my plates to begin with. Because here's the thing, chaos isn't a breakdown, it's a breakthrough. It's freedom in disguise. I swear, I know that sounds crazy, but it is. It's realizing that you can let those plates shatter and not desperately try to glue the pieces back together. I mean, why would you try to fix something that you never wanted nor needed in the first place? When you let go of trying to look like you have it all together, you finally get to ask, what do I actually want to do, right? What do I want to do with this mess? Turns out the mess is where the good stuff is hiding. Perfectionism keeps you stuck. And I'm telling you, chaos, as terrifying as it seems, sets you free. And midlife, it is the perfect time to blow up that whole perfection game because let's face it, no one is handing out gold stars at the end of this thing. But just in case they are, I'll take mine covered in chocolate, please. Now, if the life that you've built feels more like a trap than a triumph, ask yourself, what is the cost of holding on? The real question isn't what you'll lose by letting go, it's what you'll miss if you don't. You know how I know all of this? Because I have freaking lived it. I spent so much of my life in worry mode, afraid of what might happen if I stepped out of line or did things differently. Maybe it's my mental health stuff, or maybe it's just who I was at the time. I don't know. But I can tell you this, playing it safe wasn't about security. It was all about fear. I wasn't playing it safe because it made me happy. I was doing it because I was terrified of what might happen if I didn't. Fear of judgment, fear of failure, fear that if I stepped out of line, I'd end up with nothing. Turns out, clinging to what feels safe is just another way of suffocating your potential. I had this whole narrative in my head about what I was supposed to do and who I was supposed to be. My first marriage, that was me following the script. I got married because that's what women my age were supposed to do. You know, partner up, get hitched, live in a house with a white picket fence, and pop out some kids. And there is the ultimate script for women, motherhood. But here's the thing, I never wanted kids. Let me tell you, not wanting kids when the world says you're supposed to is like showing up to a potluck empty-handed. It's awkward, and everyone's judging you. I thought that playing it safe was what would keep me happy, but all it did was leave me trapped in a life that I didn't want, working overtime to meet expectations that weren't even mine. And the more I tried to hold on to those expectations, the more suffocated I felt, until finally I had to ask myself, who is all of this for? Because it sure as hell wasn't for me. The lie we've been sold is that life is about following someone else's blueprint, basically, right? Checking off boxes that aren't even yours. Living someone else's dream is the fastest way to your own personal nightmare. For me, rebuilding meant starting completely over. I went from high-powered product manager meetings to YouTube scripts and Uber pickups. It wasn't what anyone, including me, expected. But I realized in your 20s and 30s, you're trying to figure it out, right? You're trying to build your life. In midlife, you finally get to decide what you're building, and it doesn't have to look like anyone else's. You can build something that actually fits, something that doesn't suffocate you, and a life that makes sense for who you are now, not who you thought you had to be by now. Letting go doesn't mean throwing everything out the window, but it does mean shedding the expectations that never belonged to you in the first place. And once you start doing that, that's where you're going to find the space to finally build a life that fits you. What if the life you're trying so hard to fix was never the one that you truly wanted? The turning point for me wasn't when I stopped asking, am I doing this the way that I'm supposed to? Am I doing this right? It was when I realized that right didn't matter anymore. There was no right. Midlife is realizing the only thing standing between you and happiness is literally everything that you're afraid to let go of. It was time for me to figure out if the ladder that I have exhausted myself climbing is even on the right wall. And what did I learn? The ladder I spent decades climbing was on the wrong freaking wall in the wrong freaking building. And hell, I'm not even sure if it was a ladder. Honestly, this realization for me was all very confusing. And I was angry. I was angry. I was just furious that I had been faking it for so long, pretending to be someone that I wasn't. My life wasn't perfectly curated. It was a patchwork of everyone else's expectations stitched together with fear and obligation. Remember, midlife isn't a crisis unless you keep acting like it's a crisis. It's not falling apart. It's realizing the house is on fire so you can finally stop trying to redecorate. It's time to break free from the shoulds that have boxed you in for so long, right? You should have the perfect career. You should have the fairy tale marriage. You should look like you've stepped out of a magazine. Enough. Who decided this garbage and why the hell did we agree to it? It was probably the same genius who thought Crocs were a solid fashion statement. Ooh, I know that's going to make some people so pissed. I can hear like 10,000 of you screaming, but they're so comfortable. The shoulds are like pop-up ads for your life. They're relentless, annoying, and absolutely not what you need right now. All of those shoulds, they were traps. They made me feel like I was doing what I was supposed to, but really they were just excuses to stay comfortable. And comfort doesn't build a life. It just keeps you from tearing down the one that doesn't work. If you've spent your whole life climbing a ladder only to realize it's leaning on the wrong wall, what do you do next? The answer is simpler, scarier, and more freeing than you would think. Living authentically didn't magically turn my life into a Hallmark movie. Oh no. But it did give me something I'd never had before. The permission and the power to say no. Permission to stop living life by everyone else's rules and to say no to things that drain me, and to rewrite the story in a way that actually felt like mine. Reinvention isn't some big dramatic makeover montage like they show in the movies, right? It's a slow, awkward climb out of a hole you didn't even realize you'd been digging for decades. It's disorganized and it's frustrating. And truly, once you start, you're going to realize it's not as scary as it seems. Chaos doesn't destroy, okay? It strips away all the crap that doesn't matter. Chaos is like a personal trainer. It shows up when you don't want it to. It makes you hate your life, but damn it if you don't come out stronger. Midlife isn't when the pieces fall apart. It's when you get to decide which pieces you want to keep and how you want them to come together. You have to decide though, will you keep holding on to the old crap or finally let it go? The biggest risk in midlife isn't failure. It's staying safe and wasting what's left of your life living small, right? Playing it safe robs you of time, joy, and the chance to find out what you're really capable of. When I lost everything I thought made me successful, I honestly didn't know what was going to come next. But here's what I figured out. The worst case scenario isn't failing. It's trying to rebuild a life that didn't fit me in the first place. Because here's the brutal truth. Time isn't waiting for you to figure it out. The longer you stay stuck, the less of your life you actually get to live the way that you deserve. So let me ask you, what's one thing that you're still gripping onto that's keeping you from building the life that you actually want? Because if midlife has taught me anything, it's this. No one is coming to hand you permission. You've got to give it to yourself. But here's the thing. Letting go isn't just about walking away. It's about stepping into who you really are. The grief, it's real. The fear, super loud. But staying stuck in a life that doesn't fit, that's the real risk, and one I'm not willing to take anymore. And here's the truth. The moment you stop pretending and start showing up as yourself, everything changes. Want to know why? Because authenticity isn't just freeing, it's your greatest power. Let's dive into that next.